What if your dog was never meant to be just a pet? What if, out of the billions of people on this planet, your dog was always meant to find you? Not because of luck, not because you happened to visit a shelter on the right day, not because someone gave you a puppy as a gift, but because, somehow, your lives were always going to cross. Think about it for a moment. Before your dog knew your name, before it learned your routine, before it recognized your footsteps, it chose to trust you. And over time, something extraordinary happened. It stopped seeing you as the person who filled its food bowl. You became its home. Every morning, it waits for you to wake up. Every evening, it listens for the sound of your car. Every time you leave, part of its world leaves with you. Scientists can explain part of this bond. They tell us that dogs recognize our voices, memorize our scent, read our facial expressions, and even synchronize certain emotional responses with ours. But anyone who has ever truly loved a dog knows there is something those explanations don't completely capture. Have you ever noticed your dog walking over to you on the exact day you were trying the hardest to hide your sadness? Not after you cried, not after you spoke, before, as if it sensed something you hadn't revealed to anyone else. Moments like these happen so often that millions of dog owners around the world quietly wonder the same thing. How did my dog know? Maybe the answer isn't as mysterious as it first appears. Maybe the greatest gift dogs possess isn't magic. Maybe it's something even more remarkable, an extraordinary ability to love us with complete attention. And once you understand what that kind of love really means, you may never look at your own dog in quite the same way again. Have you ever wondered why the love of a dog feels so different from every other relationship in your life? People love with conditions, even when they don't mean to. We become busy. We misunderstand each other. We carry yesterday's arguments into today. Sometimes we expect too much, sometimes we give too little. We're human, but your dog lives by a completely different set of rules. It doesn't care how successful you are. It doesn't know how much money is in your bank account. It doesn't remember the embarrassing mistakes you made 5 years ago. And it certainly doesn't measure your worth by what other people think of you. To your dog, you are enough. Exactly as you are. Think about the last time you had a difficult day. Maybe something went wrong at work. Maybe you received bad news. Maybe you simply felt exhausted without knowing why. Most people would ask questions. Some would offer advice. Others might not even notice anything had changed. But your dog probably did something much simpler. It came closer. Perhaps it rested its head on your leg. Perhaps it quietly sat beside you without asking for anything. Not because it understood every problem you were facing, but because, in that moment, your presence mattered more than the reason for your pain. Scientists have discovered that dogs are remarkably skilled at reading human body language, facial expressions, and changes in our tone of voice. Some studies even suggest they respond to shifts in our emotional state long before we speak about them. Yet what makes this so powerful isn't simply their ability to notice. It's what they choose to do with that information. They don't judge you for being weak. They don't grow impatient because you're struggling. They don't ask you to pretend everything is fine. They simply stay. And sometimes, the greatest act of love isn't finding the perfect words. It's refusing to leave when someone needs you the most. Perhaps that's why so many people say their dog arrived during the hardest chapter of their lives. Not to erase the pain, but to make sure they never had to carry it alone. Now, imagine seeing the world without words. No conversation, no explanations, no carefully chosen sentences hiding what you truly feel. Only movements, only breathing, only the tiny changes in someone's eyes, posture, and heartbeat. That is the world your dog lives in every single day. While we spend our lives listening to words, dogs pay attention to everything else. They notice when your footsteps are slower than usual. They recognize the difference between the way you close the front door on a joyful morning and the way you close it after receiving difficult news. They remember the rhythm of your routine so well that even the smallest change catches their attention. Perhaps that's why so many owners have experienced the same strange moment. Before anyone else realizes something is wrong, their dog already knows. Not because dogs can predict the future, not because they possess supernatural powers, but because they are constantly observing the details that most of us never even notice. A trembling hand, a long, silent sigh, a forced smile that doesn't quite reach your eyes. To another person, these moments might seem insignificant. To your dog, they tell an entire story. And instead of turning away, Your dog quietly responds in the only language it has ever needed. It follows you a little more closely. It checks on you more often. It refuses to leave the room. Sometimes it simply lies beside your feet, saying nothing at all. Perhaps that's what makes a dog's companionship so extraordinary. It reminds us that being understood doesn't always begin with words. Sometimes, the deepest connection comes from someone who never needed an explanation in the first place. And maybe that's the lesson we forget most often. The people who truly love us aren't always the ones who speak the most. They're the ones who notice the things we never say. There is something else your dog does every single day. Something so ordinary that most of us never stop to notice it. Your dog teaches you how to live. Not with lessons, not with words, but through the quiet example of its own life. Think about this morning. While you may have been worrying about tomorrow's responsibilities, replaying yesterday's mistakes, or rushing through another busy day, your dog was celebrating something much smaller: the warmth of the morning sun, the sound of your footsteps, the excitement of seeing you walk into the room, a simple walk outside. To a dog, these are not ordinary moments. They are the moment. Perhaps that's why spending just a few minutes with a happy dog can make our own worries feel a little lighter. Their joy isn't complicated. It doesn't depend on owning more, achieving more, or becoming someone else. It comes from appreciating what is already here. And maybe we've forgotten how to do that. As adults, we often believe happiness is waiting somewhere in the future. After the promotion, after the house, after life finally becomes easier. But your dog never makes that bargain. It doesn't postpone happiness until tomorrow. It finds it in your voice calling its name, in a tennis ball thrown across the yard, in the quiet comfort of lying beside the person it loves. Maybe that's why coming home to your dog feels different from coming home to anything else. For just a few moments, you're invited into its world, a world where love is immediate, forgiveness is effortless, and this very second is enough. Perhaps the greatest gift your dog gives you isn't simply companionship. It's a daily reminder that life isn't measured by the number of years we live, but by how completely we choose to live the moments we're given. And every single day, without saying a single word, your dog shows you exactly how to do that. There is one question that doesn't have an easy answer. Why do some dogs seem to arrive at exactly the right moment? Not before, not years later, but precisely when someone's life is beginning to fall apart. Maybe you've heard stories like these. A man loses someone he loves and spends weeks avoiding the world. Then, almost by accident, he adopts a quiet shelter dog that no one else wanted. At first, he believes he's rescuing the dog. Months later, he realizes the opposite may have been true. Or perhaps it's the child who struggles to make friends until a playful puppy enters the family, becoming the first companion who never laughs, never judges, and never leaves. Or the older woman whose house had become painfully silent after retirement, until the sound of 4 paws following her from room to room filled that silence with life again. These stories are different. Different people, different places, different circumstances. Yet they all share one remarkable detail. Neither life nor the dog was ever the same after they found each other. Maybe that's because the greatest changes rarely happen all at once. They happen through thousands of ordinary moments. A tail wag waiting at the front door. A gentle nudge reminding you it's time for a walk. A reason to get out of bed on mornings when you don't feel like facing the day. A quiet companion who asks for nothing except to be near you. Over time, those ordinary moments begin to heal things you never realized were broken. Not through miracles, not overnight, but one day at a time. Perhaps that is how dogs change us. They don't rescue us with grand gestures. They simply love us so consistently that, little by little, we begin to believe we are worth loving too. And sometimes, that single belief is enough to change the direction of an entire life. One day, although we wish it weren't true, your dog will no longer be waiting by the door. The sound of excited paws racing across the floor will become a memory. Their favorite spot by the window may stay empty. For a while, the silence will feel almost impossible to understand. Anyone who has loved a dog knows that kind of silence. It isn't just the absence of an animal. It's the absence of a soul that quietly became part of your everyday life. But perhaps that isn't where your dog's story truly ends. Because the greatest things our dogs give us cannot be buried, packed away, or forgotten. The patience they taught us, the kindness they brought out in us, the habit of slowing down to enjoy an ordinary afternoon, the reminder that love doesn't always need words to be real, those gifts remain, long after the footprints disappear from the floor, long after the leash is hung on the wall for the last time. In many ways, every dog leaves behind something far greater than memories. It leaves behind a different version of the person who loved it, a person who has learned to forgive a little faster, to appreciate simple moments a little more deeply, to recognize that loyalty is measured by actions, not promises. Perhaps that was your dog's purpose all along, not to stay forever, but to quietly shape your heart while it could. So tonight, before you go to bed, take one extra moment. Sit beside your dog, stroke its fur a little longer than usual. Look into those familiar eyes that have watched over you through good days and difficult ones alike, not because tomorrow is promised, but because this moment is. And if you're watching this while your best friend is still lying beside you, consider yourself incredibly fortunate. Millions of people would give anything for just one more ordinary evening with the dog they loved. So don't wait for someday to realize how extraordinary today already is. And now I'd love to hear your story. What is your dog's name? How long has your best friend been by your side? Or if your beloved companion has already crossed the rainbow bridge, tell us their name and share one memory that still makes you smile. Your story may become the comfort someone else needs today. Because while every dog has a different name, the love they leave behind speaks the same language in every home. And perhaps that's the most beautiful reminder of all, that some of life's greatest blessings never needed words to change us forever.